I thought, what is the best way a human being should be spending their time for the most balanced and satisfying life? So there's some days I worry that I'm just not doing enough in life. And then there's other days I worry that I'm doing too much. Then I'll look at social media and I'll see people doing completely different things or doing their time differently. And then I worry that I'm doing it wrong. And then it makes me question all of my life choices. Like if you were to create the perfect amount of time or ideal amount of time ranges for work, your play, social time, eating, chores, showering, everything else you have to do, how many hours would that be for each thing? And the answer was kind of surprising. So we'll go over what are the ideal times for each thing to have a balanced life and how all of that actually adds up to more than 24 hours in a day and what we can do to balance that out. So we're first going to go over all the different categories of how we can spend our time in those ideal ranges. And I do this because it helps me stop worrying about how I should be spending my time. If I know how much time should be devoted, one less thing to worry about. And then, of course, you just become more aware of how you're spending your time, and you can make changes as necessary. So the first category of things we're going to talk about is the non-negotiables, the things we just have to do to stay alive as a freaking human. So sleep 7 to 9 hours. This is not negotiable in the slightest. If you don't sleep well, then you're not going to have energy, focus, your mood can suffer. So the National Sleep Foundation recommends 7 to 9 hours. The next thing is eating and food prep. Obviously we got to eat, and that typically on average with cooking, eating, drinking water throughout the day, whatever, it takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours per day. Next thing is bathroom and hygiene, showering, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, taking a crap, about an hour per day. Now here's an interesting one, transition time. So this is commuting, getting ready, moving from room to room or wherever, shifting between tasks. We often don't think about that. We're just thinking about the stuff we do, but there's also that moment in between the things we do. And this was interesting. The APA says that task switching, while you may be able to switch tasks pretty quickly, so you think, it actually takes about 23 minutes to your brain to refocus on the next thing you're doing. I thought that was interesting. All right, the last thing in the non-negotiables essential for survival and functioning as a human being is, I put it here, exercise. 30 minutes per day. The CDC recommends around 150 minutes per week, which is essential for your health. We're often sitting in these damn chairs so much that we forget that movement is an essential part of who we are as human beings. And if we don't do that, as you guys know, health suffers. All right, so those are the non-negotiables, and that takes up a good bit of time. And another one, the next category is obligations, like work and responsibilities. Work, typically 4 to 8 hours per weekday. You got to pay the bills. You got to be able to make that food. And it also gives you a sense of purpose. Those that don't work, while it sounds cool, like we all, want to be retired or not have to do anything, human beings are meant to have purpose. And if those who don't work or, say you won the lottery and you didn't have to do anything, after a while, people get bored. And that's because human beings are meant to have a sense of purpose, of doing things. So while work may seem like it sucks, it is important to have a purpose. So yeah, keep that in mind. The other thing is household responsibilities, around an hour and a half to 3 hours per day. Cleaning, laundry, errands, grocery shopping. You have to do all this different stuff. So hour and a half to 3 hours. All right, so the next category we've talked about the essentials. We've talked about our work and responsibilities, and now we're going to talk about things that are fulfilling, relaxation and downtime. An hour to 2 hours per day, whether that be just sitting on the couch, scrolling, watching Netflix, laying in a hammock, reading a book, whatever it is, the thing you got to do, this is important. It really is. This often takes the back seat, but science has shown that the brain needs idle time each day to process emotions, the day's events, and to kind of gain life insights, because you need downtime for your brain to let it all digest, so to speak. So that's an important category. The next one, play and enjoyment. Yeah, as adults, we have so much shit we have to do all day long, all the stuff we've already listed. We forget about enjoying our lives. Hobbies, gaming, whatever it is. And this is kind of could be associated with the rest and downtime, but maybe not. So it's important to have some play. Otherwise, you take life too seriously, and then life can suck. Now, the next thing, this can be grouped into another category, but challenging activities or growth, which can be an hour to 2 hours per day. It's important that we do things that are difficult, things that are, cause us to kind of almost suffer in a way, challenges, something that causes friction or deep thinking, whether that be through your work or through your exercise. It's good to have hard stuff, otherwise we don't appreciate downtime as much. It's not as fulfilling or rewarding to sit on the couch to play or to relax if you're not having hard things to do. Okay, all that said, everything we just talked about, if we took the average of each one of those things, guess how much time it is? 27 hours. So to have this balanced life with all these ideals of what we should be doing, it is more than a single day, which is pretty crazy. And it's just too much. You can't balance everything in a day. So the key here is to try to balance all this shit in a week. And this is where this idea called the trade-off principle comes in. Some days you're going to have to sacrifice things, and some days you'll be able to do things and other days you won't. Some days are going to be work heavy. Other days you'll have more time for social interactions or house projects or rest. And that's okay. That's good. Some days are going to be hard, like the work days, maybe where you focus on exercise and work, house chores, and you're just keeping the ball rolling. Weekends, you don't work as much, you have more social time. And this is good. Some days are going to be hard, some days are going to be more fun, and some days will be more about just rest and recovery. And we need this balance. If every day was just hard and work, life sucks. That would suck. But if it's always fun, if it's always like we're on a vacation, then it stops being fun because it gets old. We have nothing hard to compare it to. Or if you just keep moving, if you're working and playing and then you never rest, you can get exhausted and burnt out. So the key is to balance this all out and to try to find and hone in on that balance. But what we can do is try to track your time. Maybe for a week. Track your time for a week. Now, you don't have to get a stopwatch, and be super rigid, but have an idea of how much time you're spending on each of these things that we've talked about. And then over time, you begin to notice trends. You get to see imbalances, and maybe you're neglecting rest or play or exercise. And, maybe you're working too much, or maybe you're spending too much time on social media, or you're not doing enough chores during the week, and then you have too much on the weekend. Find out what it is that you can do to, allot or align your time to be more satisfying and balanced for you. Now, when you do this, after you record all this data and you begin to notice these imbalances, pick just one thing to change at a time. If you pick more than one thing at a time to change, it can become overwhelming, and then you drop it entirely. The brain doesn't like to change, so stick with one, so it minimizes the kind of intimidation of it. And to remember to treat this not as a rigid list of things to follow that you have to do every single day and it has to be by the book and by the routine. I get into that trap, and that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, is because I worry oftentimes, I need to be doing this today, I don't have time. It's not a rigid checklist. This is a flexible puzzle that you can play with throughout the week. So the take home is, you can't do everything you want or need to do for a balanced life in a single day. It takes a week about to get everything you want to do, and even that, life happens. Things are going to come up, and you're not going to be able to follow this all the time. That's obvious. The key, though, is to just periodically step back, reflect, and just adjust your time as needed into what truly matters to you and what's important for you in your life. So let me know what you think in the comments. Is there anything that you kind of realize that you need to adjust? Or are there any things that I may have forgotten? Or is there something that you flat out just say, dude, you're freaking wrong on that? I would love to hear any of that. So if you found this helpful, consider subscribing for more insights and anything else that I like to hear myself blab about. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.